What's up, y'all? I know you can see me and hear me, but we're waiting for the screen to appear, so it's just going to take a little second for that to happen. So, yes, I see two screens right now, but hopefully everybody's having an amazing night, and really excited to be here tonight. Really excited, so just give us a few seconds. That way I can see comments. Because it feels, I'm going to be honest with you, it'd be feeling weird to not, like, feel like I'm talking to somebody. So if I see the comments, it makes me feel that people are there, you know, in the room. So, let's get these comments up. That, or do we need to start it again? Is that bothering you? Oh. So, yeah, bear with me, y'all, because tonight is about to be all the way live. If you were on the live last week, oh, yes, we can see it. I can see myself. What's up, BK? What's up, Toya? What's up? Who else is in here? Emanuela. What's up, Mr. Hernandez? What's up, Sister Mason? The setup is gorgeous. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you all for joining me. If you were on, they can hear me good? We good? No music? All right. If you were you on last week? Were you on last week? Last week, we were talking about the hindrances to showing up and shining. Were you on last week? Let me know if you were there. If not, it's all love. Like, we just going to do a continuation. So let me know who's in the house. Who is in the house? What's up, Brittany? These comments, I think they might be a bit delayed. All right. Well, whether you were there or not, if you have not, I posted a video last night from that particular live, and it is on YouTube. So if you would like to go see that video, I think it's going to be important for those who know that they're at a place where they know that they're supposed to be showing up, and they know that they're supposed to be serving, and understanding that it's time for you to shine, and you shine through your work, right? You shine through your work. And so that work is the service that we're supposed to give to mankind, right? And so what we tackled last week was the idea of this false humility, how it's hard for us to show up because we've been taught that showing up in any sort of way is showing off. And so specifically, like even in religion, like we've been told to be humble, which is what we're supposed to be. But if we don't understand the truth about what it means to be humble, we tend to dim our light, we tend to hide, and therefore we can never do the work to the level of effectiveness that we need to do. And so tonight, y'all, we are going to be, I feel like this mic needs to be over a little bit more because I feel like I'm not centered. So tonight we're going to do part 2 of showing up and shining. And so tonight, there were 3 things I mentioned last week, and I said people either don't show up at all, they show up inauthentically, or they show up fearfully. So tonight we're going to be talking about showing up. Well, it's kind of like showing up authentically, but the reason why we're not showing up in our authenticity. And so we got to get to the root of it, because in order for us to do our work, we have to do it from a real place, right? And so I said I was going to talk about conviction, because when you know who you are, it makes you show up in such a way that you are, I don't know, like people feel you, right? But if you're not convicted about who you are and your identity, it's not felt. And if it's not felt, it doesn't connect. But I was like, you know what? I'm not ready to talk about conviction just yet, because before you can become convicted, you actually need to accept yourself. You have to accept who you are. And so what I find is that every time I talk from personal experience and from experience of people who I've either worked with or who I know, and I just recognize that so many people, they show up inauthentically because of the self-consciousness. We're self-conscious. We're so our focus is on ourselves, so much so that we can't show up because we're concerned about what people are thinking about our actions, or thinking about who we are as people. So we're self-conscious. So I went and looked up the word self-conscious. And the word self-conscious, at least one of the definitions I pulled, it spoke to being nervous and uncomfortable about your actions. And what it causes us to do when we're nervous and uncomfortable about our own self or about our own actions, it comes off as rigid, right? It doesn't come off as real. It comes off as rigid. And so, when I view people and I see what they're doing, and I can tell that they really want to do it, but there's still a level of, oh, I want to use, I don't know if this is the right word, but plasticity. Like that's probably not the right word. But no, there's a level of, it's not coming off from a place of authenticity. It's coming off plastic. It's coming off not real. And when things are not real to people, they can't feel. So why is it that we are coming off plastic? Well, a lot of the reasons why we come off plastic, not that we want to be fake, not that we want to be superficial, but we've seen so much produced stuff in the world that we've been told to be perfect, right? We've been shown this idea of perfection, how we're supposed to show up, how we're supposed to be so prim and so proper, that when it's time for us to really do our work, we judge it so much so because we think we're supposed to be perfect. So we leave no room for error. We leave no room for our own personality to come through. And so therefore it just comes off inauthentic. And so when we think about, I guess, this idea of perfection, it causes us to perform. When we're trying to be perfect in whatever it is that we're doing, we're showing up in a way that comes off as an act. It comes off as a show. And people can recognize a show. Like, there's something about it. Like, even if what they're giving is good, there's still a lack of connectivity there because there's a performance. And a lot of that performance comes from the fact that somehow or another we've been, like, we're trying to protect ourselves. And so when I think about, like, just the idea of plastic, like, anytime you receive something in the mail and it comes in a plastic wrap, right? It comes in this bubble wrap. Why does it come in this plastic? Why does it come in this bubble wrap? It comes in this wrap because it's trying to be protected. So when we're inauthentic and we are coming off in some way plastic, then it's because we somehow or another we've been trying to protect ourselves. We've been trying to hide parts of ourselves that we think are going to be criticized. And a lot of the reasons why we think they're going to be criticized, because the reality is we've been criticizing it ourselves. How do I know this? How do I know this? Let me see where I even want to go with this. When I think about the things that I had a struggle with accepting about myself, my voice, I'm pigeon-toed, right? I'm pigeon-toed. Like, my family used to call me duck butt. I'm sorry, that's funny to me. But when I was a kid, because of the way I walk, you know what I'm saying? Like, I had a nickname. And so, there were things that, throughout my years and growing up that I began to have a complex about, an insecurity about. And so because I began to hold on to these insecurities, now I'm criticizing my own self. And that self-criticism causes us to feel like we need to protect that part of us. So we mask it. But when we mask it and we put on the plastic, it feels like a production. It doesn't feel real. And so what we have to learn how to do, if we don't write no points down, quack, quack. I'm sorry. I'm looking at these comments. I don't know who just wrote that. But what we have to do is we have to get to a place of acceptance. So tonight we're talking about authenticity as it pertains to accepting yourself, loving yourself, respecting yourself. Because if you want to show up and you want to show up in a way that you're not being concerned about being judged, you first have to stop judging yourself. So I had to really do an exercise of, like, getting a notebook and writing down what are the things that are hard for me to accept about myself. The essence that you see now showing up on camera, the essence that you'll see and dropping in these videos, I had to learn how to accept me. I had to learn how to love me so much so that I was no longer self-conscious. And so therefore I didn't have to hide. If you would look back on my page, not even 2 years ago, I wasn't posting videos like that. I posted a video once every other month. Because I was still going through a process. See, now when you put the plastic on, it's because you're trying to protect the hurt. So if there's hurt that needs to be dealt with, that just means you have to heal. What do I need to heal from? If I know that there's an assignment on my life, I know that there's a call on my life, and I'm still battling with showing up. And if I am showing up, I'm battling with showing up in my true authentic self, the one who's going to be able to connect with people and not be so concerned about how I'm going to be judged. It just means that there's something in me that still has to heal. Lord, show me what I need to heal from. And so instead of healing, what we tend to do is hide. We tend to not even be aware of the things that we need to heal from. We just conceal it, we cover it up, and then we just go through life thinking that things are just gonna like absolve themselves, but we wonder why we can't fully go into our destiny, fully step into our assignment with confidence, and it's just because we haven't healed. So I wrote this list, and I was like, I wish my hair was fuller. I wish it was thicker. I wish my voice was different. You know, growing up in Glendale, Arizona, y'all, I had a problem, and how do I say this? People used to always talk about how proper I talk. I had a problem with accepting that. But I had to learn how to love that part of me. So I wrote this list. And as I wrote this list, I was like, God, help me to, one, heal from these things and accept these things about me, so much so that I love every part of myself fully. So if you find yourself feeling like you know that you're not completely you know you're not showing up in the fullness of your authenticity, I feel like right now I've gotten to a place where I'm like, people gonna see every side, the seriousness, the silliness, just all of who I am, the fullest expression of who I am, because it's what's required to be able to do my work. And so writing this list, I feel like, is going to be probably one of the most pivotal things that you can do, is ask yourself, what are the things that I criticize about me? That the reason why it's hard for me to show up is I feel that the people are going to agree with the things that I criticize about me. I'm in fear that people will agree and be like, yep, there's something wrong with that. Yep, there's something wrong with that. Yep, there's something wrong with that. But when you get to a place of healing, it really does not affect you, because you know that you're loved and accepted by yourself. You're loved and accepted by God. And therefore you can do your work without any hindrance. So the things we harshly criticize ourselves for are the things that we have to first take a look at. And so last year, I found myself, and I talked about this on social media before, I found myself like scrolling through social media and being real critical of other people. And it's not even a laughing matter. It was to the point where it was disturbing my soul. I was just like, God, what? Like, now you're causing things to slow down to almost warp speed, to where I'm aware of my thoughts. And why every time I scroll, I find that I'm criticizing somebody. Like, why am I being so critical and judgmental? Like, everything I see, I see the negative in it first. Like, what is in me? What is about me that's the first thing I see? And so, this had went on for some time, and it really brought me to a place where I was like, I just need to sit quiet. And I'm going to sit before the Lord. I'm like, Lord, show me. And he was like, you're judging people. And you're judging people because there's some pride in your heart that you haven't dealt with. And so what we don't understand about ourselves, and there's a scripture that I wanted to go to, but so much of what we deal with on the inside of our own selves is what we project onto others. And so it was like almost of no surprise that here it is, I'm still having a issue or a challenge with fully accepting myself because I'm judging other people. And sometimes it's hard for us to take a look in the mirror and to really like see the things that are not necessarily pleasing to God, that are not even pleasing to ourselves about ourselves. But I'm telling you, as God began to reveal that in me, and I asked God to help me to walk through this process. Now, I ain't gonna act like I don't judge people still. I'm still working on it, okay? I'm still working on it, but I'm hyper aware of it. And so as God began to walk me through this process, I had to really ask God to help me in this. How do I stop judging people? And he said, start working on the things that you need to love about yourself. And as I begin to love things about myself, let me just go to the script real quick. I need the script. Thank you. So if we go to Matthew and Matthew 7, and I love this because when I read it, I was like, dang, I seen something I never seen before in terms of like, what just happened? Why didn't they show up? Hold on, y'all. Done one blank on me. All right, Matthew 7:1. So you've heard this scripture before. Do not judge and criticize and condemn others so that you may not be judged and criticized and condemned yourself. For just as you judge and criticize and condemn others, you will be judged and criticized and condemned in accordance to the measure that you use to deal out to others. It will be dealt out to you again. And I remember as a child, like reading some of these scriptures and just like being funny, like, and I'm gonna keep on reading so you know what I'm talking about, but it talks about, why is it that you see the speck in somebody else's eye, but you got your own stuff you need to deal with. So if we go on to 4, it says, 3, it says, why do you stare from without at the very small, the very small particle that is in your brother's eye, but do not become self-awareness, and consider the beam and the timber that's in your own eye. Or how can you say to your brother, let me go get this tiny particle out of your eye when there is a beam of timber in your own eye? You hypocrite. First get the beam out of your own eye, and then you will clearly see to take the particle out of your brother's eye. And so when I read that, I was like, dang, what we don't realize is that we sit up here and we magnify other people's, shortcomings or whatever it is that we may find critical that we can criticize about them. But it's always so small, so much smaller than the things that we really need to be taking awareness of concerning our own selves. And when we begin to deal with our own selves, we're talking about showing up and shining. We're talking about showing up and shining in such a way that's authentic, that allows you to do your work in an effective way. But as you begin to take the beam out of your own eye, by the time the beam gets out your eye, the scripture itself says, what did it say? First get the beam out of your own eye, and then you will clearly see to take the tiny particle out your brother's eye. But at that point, do you even want to take, like, if it's that tiny, when you realize how small and insignificant it is that you're criticizing about somebody else, it's a waste of your time to even try to go correct somebody else's fault. Deal with your own stuff. See, but the thing is, we can easily mistake all of the things that we're dealing with and project it onto people. And so when you want to show up and shine and you really want to be authentic, the first thing we have to ask ourselves is, if I'm not able to show up in the fullness of who I am, then maybe there's some healing that has to take place. Maybe there's something that's within me that I'm unwilling to deal with, or I don't even know that I need to deal with. And so when I get around, I posted a video about complainers, but when I get around people who are always saying it's somebody else, they're always projecting, they're always complaining, it's always, but unwilling to take a look in the mirror. At some point, boo, it's you. At some point, you got to look at yourself. And so the reason why I came to this, not only was God revealing certain areas in my heart that he wanted to deal with, but I also found my life in a back and forth motion, in a stuttered state, in a state of, I'm trying to get to my dreams, but I'm double dutching. But some of that double dutching is because God was like, I need to heal your heart. I have some things that I want to give to you and do in and through you, but I can't do it with the condition of your heart right now. All those promises I told you yet, I still have a plan for that. But in order for that to really take place, your heart has to be dealt with. Your heart has to be dealt. What's up, favorite 08? Are y'all with me? Because I know this is not like, you know what I'm saying, the laughy jokey message, but I think that when we have to start taking a look at ourselves, it's sobering. It's something that really makes us like, I don't know, opens our eyes. Opens our eyes. It's people's perspective as well. Heal my heart, Lord. Authenticity. So when we come to a place where we love ourselves, we shift the focus off of ourselves. And now we can go and do the work, because the shining is in the serving. And the serving is always going to deal with other people. The shining is in the serving, and the serving is always going to deal with other people. So we have to be in a place of freedom. But if the freedom is not there, the freedom is not felt. If the freedom is not there, if we're not free in areas, how are we going to be used to really help serve somebody else? And so I feel like we are always, always on I guess, a trajectory of God dealing and working on our hearts and making us more, the Bible says, being conformed to the image of his son. We're always being conformed. He's molding us. He's shaping us. He's making us more suitable and acceptable to him. And so we have to be open to that process, because in that process, we can do our work. So for those of you, I don't know, I've talked to some people and they were like, I don't even know who I am. I don't even know what it is I want. I don't even know what it is that I feel like I'm supposed to do. And some of that is just because we have to start spending time with God, like literally spending time in a secret place alone, so we can drown out all the noise and all of the influences, so we can really start to get an idea of who we even are authentically. Because if we come up in families and we come up in societies and we get educated or miseducated by these school systems, we can take on so much of this world that we've lost our own identity. And so God has to identify us in such a way, but some of that means that he's going to pull us away. And so the very things that are familiar to us, the very relationships that we may have grown up in and felt very comfortable in, he's going to start stripping those things away, because I need to show you something about you, that if you're around too many influences, you're gonna fight this process. When I had my encounter with God, I was 22 years old. And at that time, I was living in Maryland. And I mean, when I say it was like a whole, complete turnaround. I felt like my life had completely shifted not even a night. I prayed one night and I woke up the next morning feeling completely different. And God was literally moving me and shifting me and telling me it's time to go. Like, I need you to move back to Arizona. But in the move, I know that he wanted to do certain things in my life as it pertained to me going back home. But I also believe that he was pulling me away from a familiarity and a group of people who would have shaped who I was, because I may not have been able to become who he called me to become in that group. And so when I look at how God, he moved me out of that so he could identify me and tell me who I am and what it is that I was called to do. But so much of us, we fear stepping away from that familiarity because we still have these attachments or these feelings of obligation to people. Oh, that's my best friend. Like, we've been through so much together. Oh, this is such and such. But it's like, but if God is calling you to shift, and he's calling you to come into a place of authenticity, some of your authenticity is how do I say this? The familiarity will also kind of like fight you trying to be authentic. So sometimes you have to get away so you can become who you are authentically. So when you reintroduce yourself to the familiar people, like, you are so changed that it's not going to interfere with your new identity. Your new identity. So how do we show up authentically? We have to recognize that there's some healing that has to take place. So we're not performing, that we don't feel like we got to be perfect. So we can show up and we can make mistakes. I make mistakes all the time. I'm using the wrong words. I be stuttering. I do a lot of things, and I'll rewatch the live, and I'll just start laughing. But see, I can laugh at myself at this point because I recognize that I'm okay to we can make mistakes. We can make mistakes. So y'all's homework, and I'm not saying y'all's homework, my homework has been, and what my recommendation to you is to start to jot down and to figure out what are the things that I struggle with accepting about myself, the things that are insecurities to me, and actually write them out so you can see them. Because I think that when we don't bring things to our own minds or even bring accountability to them, I believe that writing things down brings a level of accountability. Because what does it do? It first brings it out of the first dimension. It brings it out of your mind, and it brings it into the real world so you can actually see it, so you can know what it is that you're dealing with. So now when you write it on paper, you're bringing it into the second dimension. You can see it, and now you can actually deal with it. But if we never take the time to write out the things that we're dealing with, there's nothing before us to actually not to necessarily heal, but we don't even see it. Like, I always feel like we need to name it. We need to see it. And so when you bring it into the second dimension, now you can pray over and ask God to really walk you through that process. So showing up and shining and living in our authenticity is what I believe that we're all supposed to be doing so we can do our work. Tonight was a short live because I need to get to some things, but I just want to make sure that I shout out the people that's on right now. What's up, Tariq? What's up, Favorite 08? What's up, y'all? Thank you again for joining this live. If you jumped on the live late, go watch the replay. It's gonna be up on YouTube. If you're on Facebook, not Facebook. What is this? If you're on Instagram right now, you can go watch the YouTube replay, and that link will be it's in my bio right now. But the actual video I'll put in the bio later on tonight. But you all have a blessed night. My goal is to be back next Thursday, and next Thursday I may talk about conviction. But it just depends on how I'm led. Because, I don't think that we can really talk about moving boldly and stepping fully into that identity until we start addressing the things that have hindered us from showing up, the things that cause us to hide, the things that cause us to diminish ourselves and to shrink. We got to deal with those things first. So you're welcome. Y'all have a great night. I'm glad it was good for you, Kenitra. What's up, Elvis? And if anybody has any questions too, I don't mind taking some questions. I know that these comments are like moving quickly. So, are you heading out? What'd you do? Oh, okay. No, I was just trying to see if there's any questions. If anybody has any questions, I'll stick around for a few questions. But if not, I'm gonna see the exit. I might do an after party later on tonight when I get home. We'll see. I might come back live. Like, what y'all doing? What y'all doing? All right. Well, if I don't see any questions, then I appreciate the work that you're putting forth. Thank you, Sasha. Can you speak on jealousy? Ooh, that might be a whole topic. You might have to ask me like a specific question for that because I feel like there's so many different angles that we can go on. Jealousy in your own heart or jealousy that you are receiving from other people? If you can even just like break that down. Because I think that we can never dictate or control other people's actions or other people's thoughts towards us. That's one thing we can't do. But if you find yourself surrounding yourself around people who don't have capacity for you, right? They can't contain the fullness of who you are. They can't contain your greatness. Then you have to make a choice of whether you're supposed to be in that group or not. Right? So if you find that there are people that are jealous around you, first of all, we've just witnessed something that happened to a young lady in Mexico. It's dangerous to be around people who don't have capacity for you. Dangerous to be around people who are jealous of you. So if it's in your heart, that's something that you need to bring before the Lord, because I think that it's something that we all can potentially deal with, but we have to submit that to God and say, God, I'm feeling a particular way. I know I should not be feeling this. Help me deal with it. But if it's somebody in your circle, then they need to see the exit. Could you repeat I can't see the screen. Can you repeat what you should do as the assignment? Write down the things we don't like about. What was that it? Yeah, write down the things and then pray about it. Write them down and ask God. The prayer is, God, help me to accept, love, and essentially like heal from the things that I have insecurities about. People that feel they need to compete or be jealous, they competing with some imaginary person, because there is no competition when you're authentic. I think it really has to do with focus. If we're so focused on haters and we're so focused on those who are jealous, then we have to shift our focus. I'm sure there's people that don't like me, but I don't know who they are. And I don't keep those type of people around me. So it's not something that's at the forefront of my mind. But if it is, it just means that they're too close. Can you speak on career purpose? Career purpose. I mean, I would need a little bit more on that. I think that when it comes to purpose in general, purpose is found in God. And so when it comes to what it is that you're supposed to be led to do, you have to submit that before him. When I was in school, I talked about this before. I went to school for air traffic controlling, all because I was leaning into my own understanding. I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I didn't know where my life was going. But as I had my encounter with God, he started to lead me and tell me what it is that he wanted me to do. When I moved back to Arizona, he told me, I need you to go look for a law firm to go represent your case against the State Board of Cosmetology. So everything that I was doing was dependent on the things that I was hearing. And so in terms of your career, it really has to be submitted to God, to ask him, what is it that you're saying about my life in this season of my life? What is it that you're saying about my life in this season? Because what you'll find is that there are many gifts and talents that you have within you, but all of the gifts and talents are not going to necessarily be expressed in the same season. But as you're faithful over one thing, then God will give room and grace and space for expression of another gift. So I don't know if that helps, but if you can give me a little bit more detail. How can I be authentic, but at the same time die to myself and take on the fruits of the Spirit? Sometimes I feel like me being kind is being fake. Okay, you're talking about being authentic. Well, it sounds like you need boundaries. It sounds like you've been overly kind and you've allowed you've been a people pleaser, and God has not called us to be a people pleaser. He's called us to be a God pleaser. And so if you're being overly kind to the point where you are violating self, you're not being integral with your own self, then you have to ask God, help me to establish healthy boundaries so that, yes, I know that maybe he's giving you a servant heart or a servant spirit to where you're very, you jump up to help people. And that's an amazing thing if that's the gifting that he's like put on you. But also too, recognize that people will take advantage of that if you allow it. So you have to figure out what those parameters are. You have to figure out what those boundaries are in order to make sure that you're not pouring out so much that you can't like pour into your own self. That's a good point on purpose. How do you know if you're in alignment with your purpose? The alignment for me is peace. Peace. I always say, let peace be your compass. Let peace be your compass. And what does that mean? If I have a business proposal, or if I have, any decision that comes up, I allow peace to be my compass. I actually had a conversation with somebody a couple weeks ago, and it was like this rush feeling. And I was just like, I don't know, like, what's the press about? Like, why we got to hurry up and make a decision? And I didn't have peace about it. Even though I was excited about the opportunity, super excited. I was like, yeah, it's about to happen. But because I didn't have peace, I allowed that to be my compass. And I decided not to move forward with that particular decision. And so the alignment, I'm trying to remember what question I was answering. So the alignment a lot of times is going to come from you having peace and also having confirmation. I feel that as God begins to tell you or give you an instruction and you move in that, it's not to say that it's not going to be challenging. It's not to say that it's not going to be difficult. But as you move in it, there's a grace that'll be upon your life. And also you'll get confirmation to affirm or to confirm that you're actually in the right place. And so I personally, since I've been walking with the Lord, not to say that I haven't had my rebellious times or seasons where I just was not necessarily in alignment. I think in general, I was in alignment I finally got to the place that I needed to be. So I believe that that's how you get into alignment with, or know that you're in alignment with your purpose. I check them fairly often, Tiffany. Thank you. Emotionally unavailable and inability to ask for help, but looking for a relationship. Terry, I'm not sure if I can answer that question or if you could make it more in a question form for me. So yeah, if there are any other questions, I have a few more minutes. I can certainly answer if it's in my wheelhouse, if it's in my capacity to do so. I don't claim to be an expert on anything. I just know what the Lord has taken me through, and I do believe that I have a grace on my life to help people, for the most part, believe in themselves and to launch into their purpose. So if there are no more questions, what time is it, y'all? Oh, dang, I talked really quick today. What's up with me going fast? Y'all need to tell me to slow down, Essence. Slow down. All right. Well, if there's no more questions, next week at 5, I got to figure out what it is, that I feel led to talk about. I do really want to talk about conviction because I think conviction is huge. Conviction has to do with knowing. You have to go from a place of believing to knowing. And when you know, there's a way that you show up so resolute, so confident because you know. And so I really want to talk about that. I want to talk about conviction as well as boldness because it's what it's going to be required for you to do what you got to do. You're going to have to be bold. You can't be over here timid. You can't be scared. We're scared. What are we scared for? So if you all are, if that sounds like something that you want to be a part of, make sure you join me next Thursday at 7 p.m. EST. I had a great time with you tonight, and I will see y'all next week. Take me out with the fader, please.